that you can go through. You can take molten steel and add molten chromium and sulfur to get mix 1. That will go into mix 2 by adding molten copper to it, and then mix 3 by adding cobalt extract, which, I mean, hey, there's cobalt extract right there, as well as phosphate rocks from right there, and molten nickel. So basically, instead of having copper plates, and instead of having niobium plates, and instead of having nickel plates, you now add them as molten. Oh, and it's chromium and not neo. Really, not neo? Hold up, not neo. Wow. Okay, so it completely replaces the niobium input with a chromium input. Molten chromium. I like it. Oh, wait, no, it already... Yeah, just it adds chromium. That's the molten steel into stainless. So that's actually really nice. That is actually really nice. And then the molten steel alloy, by adding fuel rod 3, not so nice. By adding fuel rod 3, gives you... And there's the Neo. There's the Neo. All right, there it is. There it is. So we add we basically add chromium to this then, but not ferrochromium alloy. Interesting. So we get rid of the ferrochromium alloy entirely in this process. We use component parts of the ferrochromium alloy, but not actual ferrochromium alloy, which is fantastic. I think I would gladly spend the Fuel Rod Mark III. I would gladly spend the Fuel Rod Mark III for this molten stainless steel. For this one. This one, it's 100 out versus 50 out. It's 100 out from 50 molten 3, which you get 70 from 50 stainless steel 2. You get 60 from 50 of the 1, and then it's 55 from 100 molten steel. From 100 molten steel. Now, normally it's 100 molten steel into 50 molten stainless steel. So you can see how it's actually... You end up with more molten stainless steel than molten steel in. So it is actually significantly better of a conversion rate between molten steel and molten stainless steel. And the same exact thing will apply with the molten super steel. Now, molten super steel now requires Fuel Rod Mark II as opposed to Fuel Rod Mark I. That is a little bit of a pain in the rear, and something that I need to fix in my mall. Alloy Mix 1 is going to use Fuel Rod Mark V's. Yeah, clench. That's yellow cake. That's yellow cake. As well as Mark 1 fuel rods. Hey, sure. Sure. Neo Complex and molten stainless. Then adding the vanadium in at that step with molten titanium. And then going into the molten super by adding the trioxide, oxide, and silicon from the regular recipe. That's pretty fine. Of course, you have to have molten titanium, which I've already discussed. The intricacies with the molten titanium there, that requires a setup. But yeah, so there's the iron. There's the iron. Right next door, I have borax. So just borax washing into regular borax. I don't do any further processing here. More coke. Lots and lots of coke feeds into all of this. Down here, we have the production of sodium hydroxide, the dedicated production of sodium hydroxide through the slaked lime loop. This is coke in and sodium hydroxide out. That is how you can think of this. Coke in, salt in, sodium hydroxide out. Just throwing salt and coke, making sodium hydroxide. and it loops uh, lime and limestone through this system. You don't need to add any limestone in to this whatsoever once it's made what it's made. And then, of course, I have all of the ash production on the planet with a whole bunch of syngas being produced for the actual mining of the borax right over here. Now, I say all of the ash production on the planet because this is supposed to produce ash. Excuse me, but why you know? All right. Da-da-da, hot air. Hot air. There's the next thing. So that's like everything now talked about from within this block. Moving right along to within this block, we have the tin build right over here. This is tin actually through molten now. It was through grade whatever, 3, 4, grade 4 tin, but fortunately grade 4 tin can be powderized, and then that can go directly into molten without having to go through MIBC. Tin is the other thing that uses MIBC, but it uses it a little bit later on, and you can do molten tin without any significant outside input of like fluids. You can do it with just adding graphite as well as borax to make your molten, and then cast your molten with hot air. With hot air, so another spot to add hot air to. Let's see here. We talked about the silicon already. I also have an oil setup over here. Not using it all that much, but I am using it in greater than 0 amounts. Down here is nickel. Nickel processing. This is, I have updated the mining on this. This was originally planned at, I think, 5 red belts. 5 red belts, I think was the original plan here. So 150 per second, which, you know, it's 10 yellows, is 5 reds. So that's all of this infrastructure is the processing through grade or powdered or whatever this is. Whatever this is. Up here. Grade 3 into grade 4, I think is the name of this one. Into molten. And then I actually have casting with hot air of the molten nickel with molten chromium of nichrome. And of course, hot air casting of nickel plates in there. And that also needs a whole bunch of syngas. So there's the same old syngas build for that as well. Up here I have salt. I have all of the salt. All of the salt. All of the salt on the planet. It's actually like only 80. 80? I forget. It's a lot. It's 10 each. So how many do I have here? How many do I have here? It's 18. I have 180 per second of salt flowing through here. Actually more. It's more than that because mining productivity. Without mining productivity, it would be 180 per second, but yeah, 30% more than that. So, you know, just a little salt to add to my train network up here. And I also have some fish. Glorious, beautiful fish. Wonderful fish through the basic fish recipe. Lamps, biomass, salt water, oxygen. That's it. Deal with the wastewater. Make a little bit of urea out of the wastewater. That's what I'm doing there. Doing some ore sorting, I think, for the biomass. And that's about it over here. So that's my fish as well as my salt. Now, right in here, we've got the aluminium build. The aluminium is flowing freely. It is making pulp 1 that is being put onto my network because I need pulp 1. And I also have the molten out of that. This is another hot air setup. I am also bringing in copper to make duralumin. duralumin, beautiful duralumin. And then I have all of the side inputs all up here and have phosphoric acid is needed in the pulp 1 stage. So all of that is built right in here. Over in this general direction, I have a glorious sulfur setup that is using robots for the sulfur, because that would be a bit much with belts for all of this, especially this tightly compact of space. And I also have sulfuric acid here. This is a single pipe's throughput, like 1200 per second-ish, around there, doing vanilla sulfuric acid out of the sulfur being made here. I just beaconed a thing to massively increase the output, brought some iron in, and there you go. I have got more sulfuric acid production here without the use of cadaveric aurum. And I have put that onto my train network. Down here, I have the primary urea production on the train network. It is highly moduled, but this is just liquid manure. I'm bringing the manure in, liquefying it, adding Zogna bacteria, making Zogna bacteria, and then converting that into all of the urea that I need for my base. I hope to God it's all the urea I need for my base. Now, I've talked about all of this at this point. Moving on over to here, I have the uranium build. This was formerly the bone meal from Ulrich's. This particular build is all the way up to yellow cake from the start. So if I do really want to do the further processing of the stainless steel and such, I am going to need to pull in and make some 40% uranium powder from, I think it's you, the pulp. I think the pulp makes 40% powder. 40. It is the pulp. Yep. I remembered. It's the pulp. It makes fuel rod 3s. I do have the 20% already being brought over and made and put onto my depot. This will be used to make the Mark II fuel rods, which I need to do the normal base super steel recipe now. So that's a thing. Yeah, you can watch when I built this what this process looks like. It's a lot more complex than it looks, thanks to all these percentage thingies. But yeah, just know that once you get your pulp, once you get your pulp here, it's not so linear anymore. It's pretty linear. This is normal high grade type stuff all the way to here, and then percentages. Lots and lots of percentages and splits in the system. Just know you've got 2 hydrocyclones, 4 hydroclassifiers, and 4 thickeners worth of recipes, and you'll be good. And then at the end, it's an evaporator to make your powder. However, we also need yellow cake. We need our yellow cake too, and that is another additional linear segment that is going to consume a significant amount of soil, as well as filters and biofilm, and industrial solvent, and soda ash regeneration solution, and ammonia in here. So, yep, quite a few outside inputs for this, but it's fine. I have the cake. I have the yellowest of cake. Directly below my uranium setup is my manure setup. This, as you could probably tell, used to be a lot bigger. This was my Muckmo manure factory. It is now down to this and producing, I've forgotten at this point, 150 per second is what I built this for. This is the quality food, which is being made in my mall, along with salt. I don't need these 2 stations anymore. But yeah, it's quality food and salt. producing a bunch of stuff. Pretty simple. It's a lot of water as well, so I have to like do things with water. And yeah, it's manure. It's manure. Glorious, beautiful manure. Moving right along. What shall I talk about next? Because we have everything. The other half of the base. That's only half the base. Can you believe it? Like, that was all the top half of the stuff. Now to talk about the bottom stuff here that includes them all. Alright, so I guess I'll start all the way over here on this side, and we'll work our way through the bottom part of the main line here. So over here I have more power. This is actually just a self-contained, aka only coke in, which I could switch over to biomass at any point. Syngas based power. I haven't updated this. This is like really actually low output, like less than a gigawatt out of all this, like 600-ish megawatts. I've forgotten entirely exactly what this output is. But yeah, it's there, it exists. I'm considered just deleting it because it's completely outdated. Right next door, though, I have the incubated petri dishes, which I could also improve at this point. Makes stuff. This is from glass. This does not need to be updated. This does not need hot air. But there are hot air options, I think, along the way. Over here, glass. Glass is dead. Glass is dead. Glass needs to be updated. This is molten glass. Update for the molten. This makes molten glass. It's purified quartz. The purified quartz does loop into my mall to produce glassware, so at least there's that. But this was producing a bunch of glass, a bunch more glass. It's processing, just a few things of quartz, plus a few more, plus a couple more highly beaconed things of quartz. So, yeah, lots. Short answer, lots. I also have some crushed quartz going in for something. Silicon wafers, I think. How am I always right about these things? So it's the crushed quartz is going to the mall specifically for silicon wafers. That's what it's there for. That's all that it's there for, as well as the phosphate glass. Okay, so it's two things technically: phosphate glass and silicon wafers. It was added for silicon wafers and then also got used for phosphate glass. All right, that's that, and then there's the whole mall. Shall I talk about the mall last? I think I'll talk about the mall last because the mall is like everything else. Everything else. Up here, I have a temp urea station from what was being made on the main bus. Still being made on the main bus, actually. Over here, this tin chromium no longer needs to exist, and doesn't. And doesn't. I can delete it completely. Primary bone meal. This is what became of my old bone meal factory. It is now producing significantly more bone meal. I forget how much. 60, I think, somewhere along those lines. I am raising Ulrich cubs at this point using Mark III Ulrich in Mark II Ulrich corrals. I could use Mark IV Ulrich corrals now and actually make Mark IV modules, but This is using quality Ulrich food as well as raw fiber, bedding, and pheromones, and water, of course, to produce Ulrich cubs. The Ulrich cubs are growing in a 1:2 ratio into caged Ulrich through the power of growth factor and resveratrol, and the fetal serum. And that is then they are all going to slaughter to make glorious, beautiful bone meal in this nice little factory right here. And I have here's one of my fuel stops, by the way, for the rocket fuel stops. As we go along, I also had a little bit of wood from the mall going up here, but that also no longer exists. it no longer exists. Down here, I'll mention I still have a little bit of a standard vanilla array of power production, you know, the whole magical 72 megawatts of production. That's actually 60 megawatts of production because I haven't updated this belt at all this whole time. Um, in case you didn't know, a yellow belt of coal can only feed 60 megawatts of power. So even though the number of machines, the number of the boilers and steam engines could output 72 megawatts of power, they can't actually do it off of a single yellow belt of coal. When built in this arrangement, you would have to add in another belt or use a better belt than yellow. This is why, actually, Crastorio, I think, adjusts the output of the boilers slash the output of the steam engines. I think is where it's actually that adjustment's been made, such that it only actually outputs 60 megawatts of power for 80 steam engines. That's why that change was made, is because, well, a yellow belt of coal can only feed 60 anyway, not 72, and a lot of people get in trouble because of that throughput limitation on the belt. They'll think they have 72 when they actually only have 60. It's a pretty common mistake that's made. Over here I have zinc, my initial zinc that is not really doing anything anymore. I'm pretty sure like I've terminated most of the stuff that is using this. Wow, I'm actually still using that. Ah, yeah, that's gone. Yeah, so that's not being used. That's not being used there, and I may have terminated. No, I haven't. Interesting. I thought I got rid of that. I can get rid of that. That doesn't need to exist. That does not need to exist. That whole thing. I don't need any of this anymore, but there it is. It goes up through some powdered thingy. Powdered zinc into plates. It used to be hot air, does not do hot air anymore. I have another build for this that will need hot air, but we'll get to that. Over here we have lamps. Simple, just lamps onto the network. We have the original quartz processing build, which again, it's molten. I think I'm just going to have this like not exist anymore. This doesn't need to exist. I have another build completely for this based off of the purified quartz, and I think this is just outdated. Just like delete me. That can all die a horrible death, horrible awful death. Over here, I have the initial borax washing diborane stuff that goes onto my mall. So all of this goes to the mall. It's not really being used all that much anymore. And then all of this beautiful behemoth is 1 gigawatt of power out of fuel oil. I don't like that it's being done out of fuel oil. That was a dumb decision at the time. It's objectively better, instead of converting crude to fuel oil, to convert crude to heavy oil, which has the same fuel value as fuel oil, but converts effectively 1-to-1 crude oil into heavy oil through steam cracking. You only lose a little bit because you have to use some of that heavy oil to get the steam. Don't use the crude. You can use the crude. I would probably use the crude actually to do the steam, just because it's more plentiful from a derrick. Choices. You have choices. But I would say heavy oil is by far superior to then go into the oil burners to produce steam instead of fuel oil. But anyway, I made my decision. I did it back then before realizing, oh hey, not the best options there. It's a whole bunch of entities I could delete at any time as well. I don't need that 1 gigawatt of power in particular. I have better builds for that. Over here, as we continue along on our merry little way, I have a Petri dish factory. Neat little Petri dish factory right over here. All of the things that I could make locally, I was making locally. Oh yeah, that's a thing I'll have to update. If I do decide to delete this, there's a few things that I take this glass to that would need to be adjusted. But I'll adjust. Over here, I have sea sponges being made. I do make a lot of stuff locally for this. Sea sponges need the phytoplankton, zogna, slake, no, biomass. This is a old biomass loop. Looks like it needs blue gas for the phytoplankton. But yeah, I have plenty of the sea sponges. I don't know why I even really needed to do a dedicated sea sponge build. It's not actually used all that much outside of upgrading a few things. Over here, I have substrate. Beautiful, glorious, wonderful substrate. Yeah, it's a thing. This is fungal substrates. Level 1, level 2, and level 3, or basic, improved, and quality. I think this is called quality fungal substrate. Or I call it special fungal substrate, but I think it's actually quality something. One of those. I am doing the actual incubated locally because this loops petri dishes. So why make the incubated locally? Because the improved and special substrates both return petri dishes and use incubated. So, and it's 1-to-1. So you just have to make the agar, make the petri dishes without using productivity, and then make the incubated dishes. And the alternative, you could just, void the petri dishes and use all of the productivity on the planet. But anyway, enough of that. There's that build. Down here, I have biosamples, primary biosamples being made. Make sure to always efficiency the hell out of your collectors for biosamples, and then make them go really, really fast. Because the biocontainers are a fuel source that can also get productivity, I think. These things use titanium, lead, glass, and steel, so these are really expensive to make. And early on, it's really expensive. Your output will be very low, but once you do get modules, holy hell. Speed and efficiency. Speed and efficiency. Those are the two key things. If you can get that minus 80% consumption, that's going to be huge. But also the speed at lower consumption is where it's at, because the consumption doesn't change as speed of recipes increase. This is the way that watts work. Watts are joules per second. There's nothing about how fast the machine is moving that is part of that equation. It is going to use a certain amount of power per second so long as the machine is moving. It doesn't care about how fast the machine is moving and how fast it's mining. All it cares about is that it's on and it's using a certain amount of power per second. So if you can make the machine do 3.5 items, 3.5 cycles per second, that's fine. It's consuming 40 kilowatts regardless with this minus 80%. So it's consuming 40 kilojoules per second, and you're getting 3.5 mining cycles for that 40 kilojoules per second by making it go faster. And that applies to everything that consumes fuel, by the way. Anything that consumes fuel in that manner gets similar gains by doing that. Alright, let's see. Over here, we've got the Yotoi build. We have the Yotoi aloe and fruit. being made. I don't think that these are broken. I think I am using primitive enough recipes that they are not changed to have pesticides on them, but I could update them at any time. Over here we have the molybdenum build. It's a little bit of a mess at the moment because I've like productivity and all that good stuff and module to the top stuff. I don't need any of this anymore, of the bottom stuff, and I need to like update the mark levels of stuff. This is using hot air, but I might actually switch this to not. We shall see. Just like Niobium, you can productivity every step along the way, for the exception of the one building that doesn't allow productivity in it, which is the filter here. It needs lots of nitrogen, though. That's one of the main problems of this. Just, it's lots of nitrogen. You need all three. You need all three of these products here: the disulfide, the trioxide, and the plates themselves. For various things, though the disulfide only gets used in intelligent units. Trioxide gets used for super alloy. God, please be super alloy. Hey, it's a super alloy. Yeah, I am correct. And then the plates are actually used in super steel. Normal recipe for super steel. So there's Molly up there. Over here, I've got some heavy oil and lubricant. Heavy oil and lube. Do the vanilla process for the lube from heavy oil, and then steam cracking for all of the heavy oil on the planet. And then right next door, I have my wood build. Double wood build over here. It needs lots of ash. This is actually just for ash up here. And then I compost for biomass for the moss. I don't actually need any of that anymore. I can bring moss in by train now to feed this instead. I do need biomass for the CO2, and I need something for the tailings as well. Or I could just not use this recipe and just forget about it completely and just productivity the crap out of the logs into wood. Or focus more on just loading up logs and do the productivity locally on local wood production from logs. That is also an option, especially since there are a few things that actually use logs, as it turns out. Over here, I have power from natural gas. So, you know how I had power from the natural gas that I showed a little bit ago out of biomass? Well, it's basically this build up here that is doing biomass from crude oil and then natural gas into power. So that other build was just over yonder, over here. This build up here is just a miniaturized and highly moduled and beaconed version of this build right here. This build is a gigawatt-ish, 2 gigawatts actually, with 20. If that one, or 1.5. 1.5. If the other one was 3 gigawatts out of 40, this one's going to be 1.5 out of 20. Ish. Not quite. This one's 1,800 units of combustion mixture. So, just keep that in mind. And down below is another gigawatt, another 1.5 gigawatts-ish, with the same math as the other one. So it's consuming the same amount of natural gas, producing the same amount of combustion mixture as what's right above it. So power, all the beautiful, wonderful power ever. Over here, I have ammonia being produced, consuming chromium plates, because Pynodon decided, hey, let's have an alloy for making ammonia out of the hydrogen and nitrogen. Let's consume some alloy to make it less appealing. It's still really appealing to make the ammonia in this way. This is still the best way of making ammonia, just a little bit more expensive than it used to be. And then right next door is the production of the organic solvent, as well as production of acetone and phenol. So acetone, phenol, and some overflow ammonia are all being provided by this setup in here.